Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Today I want to, go a little into, trusting the Lord. All right, trusting in Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, and, His will. All right, but jump right into it. It's the book of Numbers, the 30th chapter. And it's speaking about vows. All right, but I want to read through it first before I make my point. We could start at verse 3. It's the book of Numbers, chapter 30, verse 3. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she hath bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. All right, because when you are a woman pretty much under the house of a man at a certain age, all right, they have that, that say so when it comes to things like this. All right, this is going back into the laws. Now I want to liken us, all right, because we know scriptures liken the elect, all right, of the nation of Israel as the bride of Yahushai. All right, scriptures liken, Israel as a woman of the Lord. All right, and also going into, here is specifically speaking about vows, but I want to pretty much get into prayers. All right, prayers, vows, pretty much coming to the Lord. All right, because although they're not exactly the same, they do have similarities, okay, in the fact that a prayer and a vow, you're asking something of the Lord. It's just that typically, okay, with a vow there's more commitment of something that on your behalf, right? You might say, Lord, if you do this for me, then I promise that I'll do that, this or that. All right, pretty much like a promise, and if you think about it in a sense, all right, we pray to the Lord because we've already promised him something. All right, we've already committed to what? Serving him. All right, that's why we feel free to come and ask the Lord for things, or or to speak to the Lord, and so on and so forth. All right, so although they're not the same, they have those similarities. But continuing, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she hath bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. All right, so if the father hears it and he's like, okay, I'll allow it, then whatever she has vowed, okay, whatever she has promised, it stands. But if her father disallow her in the day that he heareth, not any of her vows or of her bonds wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand, and the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai shall forgive her, because her father disallowed her. All right, so if the father doesn't approve of it, okay, the Lord will scratch it off. He'll forgive it. All right, have mercy. Verse 6, and if she had an all-in husband when she vowed, or uttered out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand. All right, because now the husband, she's in the house, she's in his house, all right, under his authority. So now he has that, that authority over that. And her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her. All right, so again, dealing with really the elect of the nation of Israel. All right, Lord's will we be of that number. All right, but we're likened unto the bride of Yahushai. All right, and we come to the Lord for certain things. All right, we ask the Lord for certain things. We speak to the Lord, all right, through Yahushai. And as we're reading here, all right, you might ask the Lord for for something that you think that you think you may want, all right, that you think may be good for you, and the Lord shows mercy, all right, in declining it, pretty much declining what you asked for, all right. He might prolong the time that you get it, and pretty much altering in a way what it is you want, all right, because he knows that you're going to be better off with. All right, so Salakia for the interruption, but another spam call. But as I was going into, right, you might ask the Lord for certain for something, and he shows mercy, as we read here. He says, and the Lord shall forgive her. He shows mercy and pretty much declining it. All right, maybe Yahushai might have intervened on your behalf in what you was asking for, all right, because as we're reading here, okay, Yahushai would be likened unto that husband, all right, of the woman, so therefore he has that authority over her vows, over the things that she promises, and so on and so forth, right, which that she again likening unto us. All right, but the Lord might show mercy in declining it, prolonging it, all right, switching it up a little bit. You might, because we might think we know what we want, but the Lord knows what's best. All right, he knows that whatever you ask for, you might be better off without it. All right, for the time it might seem convenient, for the time it might seem like what you want, but the Lord knows that if you were to have that, it might fuck up what you got going on. All right, it might kill your momentum for serving him, and so on and so forth. And that's why, as I said, I want to get into pretty much just trusting in the Lord, all right, and trusting in his methods. All right, let's grab the book of Romans, the 11th chapter. This is the book of Romans, chapter 11, verse 33. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and the knowledge of the Most High! How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out. For who hath known the mind of the Lord, or who hath been his counselor, or who hath first given to him, and it shall be recompense unto him again? For of him, and through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen. All right, so the Lord, he is the all-knowing. His knowledge is far beyond anything we can perceive. All right, so knowing that, we have to put trust in the methods of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai. All right, and to trust the Lord is to pretty much not to doubt his knowledge, not to doubt his judgments, and how he has things happen. It's the book of John, chapter 16, verse 23. All right, prayer promises. And in that day, this is red letter Yahushua speaking, and in that day ye shall ask me nothing. And in that day ye shall ask me nothing. Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. All right, this is what Yahushua said. As we read in Numbers, the 30th chapter, all right, and as I was hitting that, it might not happen how you want it. All right, you might come to the Lord with a specific prayer, and he might grant it to you, but in a different way, different means, all right, on his time, and things of that nature, but the Lord knows what's best for you. The Lord knows more about you than you do. Right, because he's the Father of spirits, so you might think you do, you might think what you're coming to the Lord for, but you really don't. Okay, the Lord can see that, or he's able to see that whatever you just asked for, okay, might be your downfall. For example, right, you might have someone who thinks that they might need to help me right now, right? They might need a woman on their side right now. It might ease the pain or whatever they're going through. But the Lord might see that if he was to give you a woman, all right, she might turn your heart away from him. All right, we see that countless examples of that, within the scriptures. Okay, main one being who? King Solomon. All right, and that's why the Lord, although it wasn't unlawful, all right, he advised against, marrying the women of these other nations. All right, because they would turn, your heart, your spirit away from him and towards their God, and so on and so forth. The point being, all right, the Lord knows best, and you have to trust in that. All right, trust in his word. I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. All right, and he's going to do that, on his accord. All right, if he sees fit, then he'll let you have it. If he doesn't, then he won't let you have it. But you have to understand that, the Lord, has our best interest at heart, because we serve him. It's the book of Romans, the 8th chapter. It's the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 26. Our victory in Hamashiach. Likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. All right, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought. So that's why sometimes you mentioned you might be asking for something, and the Lord knows that whatever you're asking for, if you had his knowledge, okay, knew what he knew, you would not be asking for that. All right, but as it reads here, but the Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And that's why sometimes it may seem like you might ask the Lord for something, and again he declines it. All right, or he alters it, or he switches up the predicament, for lack of better words. Right, he switches up the instructions, right, for lack of better words. He switches it up because he does it, to your best interest. All right, and that's how the Lord operates for those that love him. All right, he shows that same love. But the Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of the Most High. All right, and this really would be who? The Yahweh Shai. All right, we speak to the Father through Yahweh Shai. And as we were reading in Numbers, the 30th chapter, the Lord maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of the Most High. So just like the father, just like the husband, all right, made that intercession, dealing with the vow or whatever, all right, that's what Yahweh Shai, does for us. According to the will of the Most High. Why? All right, because that will, as we're going to read in the 28th chapter, and we know that all things work together for the good to them that love the Most High. All right, so the will of the Lord has our best interests at heart. It might not seem like it to us. All right, the Lord might be putting us through certain things, and then it might seem like he hates you. But at the end of the day, all right, the Lord, is doing everything for our benefit, all right, for our success, ultimately, for our prosperity. All right, he's going to make you, if you're of his elect, go through, and experience those things needed for you to prosper. Because as we read in Romans the 11th chapter, the Lord, all his judgments, all right, his knowledge and his understanding, that's beyond any of us. And the Lord, he created us, all right. He had our spirits created according to his will, All right, let's grab the book of 1 Corinthians, the 2nd chapter. Well, let's finish reading this verse. And we know that all things work together for the good to them that love the Most High, to them who are called according to his purpose. And also going into the fact that, we might think we know what we want, all right, but the Lord truly knows what we want and truly knows what's best for us. So it might seem that he's not listening, sometimes in some cases, but really, he's just doing what's best for you. So going to 1 Corinthians, 2nd chapter. It's the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. We can start at verse 10. But the Most High hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit, for the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of the Most High. Right, and through the Spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi, all right, the Lord has revealed certain, things to us. All right, has allowed us to understand to certain things to a certain extent. Verse 11, for what man knoweth the things of a man, right, save the spirit of man which is in him? Even so the things of the Most High knoweth no man but the Spirit of the Most High. But I want to focus on the part where it says, for what man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of the man which is in him. All right, and that's goes with Romans the 8th chapter, how the Spirit, makes groanings. All right, the Spirit knows what it needs, and so on and so forth. Well, the Lord, right, he had us in our spirits created according to his will. All right, the Lord pretty much, we must understand that his hands, all right, are the best hands for us to be in. He created us, all right, he is the creator, so we have to understand that and then just trust in his plan, trust in his plan and see it through. All right, scripture speak about keeping the word of the Lord's patience. All right, that's trusting in his idea, his instruction, all right, his word. And that means not doubting, all right, not doubting the things that the Lord has happened, not doubting his method, all right, not doubting certain events, not doubting the things that the Lord has happened to you. No, because at the end of the day, if you love the Lord, if you're serving the Lord, it's all for you to prosper, all right, for your success. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach, chapter 11. You start here at verse 21. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach, chapter 11, verse 21. Marvel not at the works of sinners, but trust in the Lord. All right, and in the works of sinners, all right, the ultimate the sinners is pretty much who? Men. All right, the people of this world, Esau, Edom. And to marvel is to pretty much, admire, right? To be in awe at. And when people admire certain things, they're intrigued by certain things. They tend to trust those certain things. All right, they want those certain things, and sometimes it gets to a point where they know that those certain things might not even be good for them, but they still indulge in it. All right, they still take comfort in it, and so on and so forth. It says, marvel not at the works of sinners, but trust in the Lord. All right, the trusting in the Lord is the best option. All right, the best way for salvation, the best way for life. And abide in thy labor, for it is an easy thing in the sight of the Lord on the sudden, Salakia, on the sight of the Lord on the sudden to make a poor man rich. But going back to the works of sinners, all right, dealing with Esau Edom, people trust in what? They're ultimately going to trust in his technology. All right, they're ultimately going to admire his technology instead of putting trust in the Lord. All right, they're ultimately going to take that MOTB, all right, that micro CHIP, as it reads in Revelation the 13th chapter. You know, they're going to marvel and be awed or be in awe at his system. Okay, let's grab that. Because that's the 14th verse. Here, it's the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Okay, there's one of his heads dealing with the Roman Empire. And what it's really going into is the fall of Esau Edom. All right, for a period of roughly 1,000 years. You can read that in the Revelation 20th verse. And his deadly wound was healed. That was these devils coming back into power. All right, coming back into power, reestablishing their system. All right, spreading deception around the earth. And through that deception, as we read here, and all the world wondered after the beast. Okay, through that deception, Esau, you know, pretty much painted themselves, how they operate, all right, their way of life, their system, as the best thing to ever happen to the world. And therefore the world, okay, admired, was in awe at, you know, at their way, okay, at their system, how they did things and ran things and wanted things to be thaumazo, to wonder at, marvel, to be wondered at, to be had in admiration. And that's the way they went. All right, and that's ultimately the way we came out of. You know, we came out of the way of the world, all right, and came into the trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai. Okay, that's why scriptures say that they shall no longer stay upon them that smote them. You know, let's see if we could grab that. I believe I worded that correctly. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 10, verse 20. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 10, verse 20. A remnant will return, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, okay, ultimately the elect, and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob, shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai, the Holy One of Israel in truth. Let's actually open this up. I want to look into that word stay, in which, you know, this begins mentally, all right? This begins in the spirit, to no longer look after, you know, the world, to look after Esau, but instead to turn that trust to the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai. Stay, shine, to lean on, trust in, support, right? To lean upon, support oneself of trust in the Most High. So trusting in the Lord. So reading here, marvel not at the works of sinners, but trust in the Lord and abide in thy labor. For it is an easy thing in the sight of the Lord on the sudden to make a poor man rich. All right, and ultimately that poor, okay, likened unto the elect, likened unto Israel, being made rich. How will be made rich? All right, in the promises, in the glorification through the Lord. All right, in the salvation, you know, ultimately in the kingdom. That's the riches and the glory, and that's what we're waiting on, man. But you have to abide in the trust in the Lord. All right, abide in thy labor, because that shows that you trust in the Lord. The blessing of the Lord is in the reward of the godly, and suddenly he maketh his blessing flourish. Say not, what profit is there of my service, and what good thing shall I have hereafter? Because what is that? That's distrust. Okay, that's doubt. You're questioning, you know, why do you serve the Lord? questioning why or what's the point, questioning why, questioning his methods, all right, questioning his plan. That's the opposite of trust. We know that, as scriptures say, all right, if we continue to abide in the work, all right, continue to serve and trust in Yahweh Ba'Shem Al-Shai, all right, continue to have that faith, as we read in Romans 8th chapter, all right, that the things will work out for our good, and also that we shall reap, as it reads here in Galatians the 6th chapter. Galatians chapter 6 verse 7. Be not deceived, the Most High is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. All right. So if you sow to the according to the will of the Lord, if you sow according to the trust in the Lord, then you're going to reap. There's no need to question that. Right now, while you're sowing, it may seem like you're not going to reap. It may seem like the Lord, might be against you. All right, that the Lord, is having certain things happen to you, that seem as if, you aren't serving him. But that's all a part of the trial and tribulation and the suffering and affliction that the Lord puts us through to strengthen our trust in him. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of his flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well doing, all right, that labor, for in due season we shall reap. Okay, it doesn't say we might reap, but we shall reap if we faint not, right? If we continue, if we don't fall, ultimately, right? If we don't fall out of that trust that we have for Yahweh Ba'Shem Al-Shai. And going back to what we started off with, all right, you might ask the Lord for certain things and he may decline it, all right? Yahweh Shai may decline that message as our husband, all right, because he knows that if you were to receive that, whether it be at that time, all right, whether it be receiving in general, you might faint, so the Lord, we just have to understand that to trust in the Lord's plan, man, no matter how it may be seeming to go. It's like a show where you may have a group. Okay, one person devises a plan, and maybe they have to get inside of a building or something, right? He goes through the vents. Everyone's outside waiting. Like, I don't think he's gonna make it. Blah blah blah, talking crazy, right? Next thing you know, boom, the doors pop open, and then he walks out. Saying, "What did I tell you?" All right, all you had to do was trust in the plan, all right, trust in the will of the Lord, because the will of the Lord is going to happen regardless. All right, let's grab that. It's the book of Isaiah 55. It's the book of Isaiah chapter 55 verse 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. So if you know the will of the Lord is going to happen regardless, the Lord tells us how, if we serve him, all right, that will be to our benefit. Where's the issue? All right, that there shouldn't be an issue, even if that will may involve us getting harmed, may involve death. That's going to be the cases for some. May involve afflictions, may involve suffering. We know that in the end, it involves prosperity, and it involves everlasting life. All right, it involves salvation, and it's going to happen regardless. So why not, be on the good end of it? All right, If you have, let's say you have two cars, all right, one is a completely fucked up car, you're driving, it's making all types of noises and this and that, and you have a nice car, perfect, the best car you can ever want, right? They're both headed to the same direction, and they're both going to get there no matter what. Why would you not just hop in a good car? All right, there's no underlying cons or anything. Two cars, one good, one bad, same direction, same destination. All right, anyone in their right mind would just choose to go with the good car, not going through anything, right? You just jump in the good car, now you're on the good side, and so on and so forth. All right, it's not the best example, but you get what I'm trying to say. Point is, everyone and everything is controlled by the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai. All right, so why not try and get on the good side of that will? That's just, it seems like common sense, but then again, we know the Lord has those he blinds. So I'll close it off here. It's the book of, I believe it's Wisdom of Solomon, the 16th chapter. Is it the 16th chapter? Yes, the 16th chapter. It's the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 24. And it reads, "For the creature that serveth thee, who art the maker, increaseth his strength against the unrighteous for their punishment, and abateth his strength for the benefit of such as put their trust in thee." All right, so those who serve the Lord, they pretty much humble themselves, all right, for the benefit, for the reward of those who trust in the Lord. Therefore, even then was it altered into all fashions, and was obedient to thy grace, that nourisheth all things according to the desire of them that had need. All right, so the Lord nourisheth all things. He does certain things according to the desire of them that had need. All right, which would be who? Us. All right, the elect of the nation of Israel, Lord's will. That thy children, O Lord, whom thou lovest, might know that it is not the growing of fruits that nourisheth them, but that it is thy word. All right, that's the point. It's the will and the word and the method and the plans of Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Bashai that nourishes us, man, which preserveth them that put their trust in thee. All right, so, and no matter what it looks like, no matter what it looks like, we trust in that. All right, we trust in the word of the Lord. So with that being said, Lord willing, this video was edifying or uplifting in some way, shape, or form. And once more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.